Hey there, folks. Taylor Ellwood again, back and done after a day of driving around and thinking further about this topic about the power of being humble. I thought I'd do another video. So, in this case, what I want to talk about is how there's a link between being humble and being confident. Isaac Boatwright and on Facebook had actually commented on that, and he said, like with being humble, there's actually this confidence, and I agree with that. I mean, I think that like when you're humble, you're filled with self-awareness of yourself. Like you know your strengths and you know your weaknesses, and you're actually able to be very comfortable with those things. You know your limits. And I know we live in a society where it's all about overcoming limits, and it's all about, bucking the system and all this other stuff. And I get it. And really, I mean, occultism, magic in general, let's be honest here, that just that kind of gets doubled down on even more. Like people are all about, like, ooh, beat the chest and show how uber cool they are, and come up with some spiel about how they're the Lord of Darkness, or some silly thing like that. Well, I mean, honestly, I really don't care if you're the Lord of Darkness or not. It makes no difference to me. But the thing is like when you're humble, you don't really need to put on airs. You don't need to be pretentious and pompous or feel the need to beat your chest and prove what a uber cool person you are. You just know who you are. And the right people are drawn to you, and the people that aren't, well, they'll just filter themselves out. Being humble is not about being meek. I think a lot of people associate humbleness with meekness because of Christianity and the way Christianity links it up. But I don't really see it as one and the same. And I don't see it as being a case of submission when you're humble. I think if anything, it's more along the lines of I'm aware of myself. I know who I am. I know I know my strengths, I know my weaknesses, I know when to go and get help, and I know when I'm the one who can help. I kind of liken it to if you've ever read the book Good to Great, which I highly recommend if you're a business owner, but even if you're not, it's a good book to read, where they talk about the CEOs of the different companies that are like great companies. These CEOs all have a couple of things in common, but one of the things they have in common is that they're humble. They never make it about themselves. Instead, they're always focused on making the company great. They're always focused on taking care of the people that work at the company. They're always focused on creating iterative processes that work. And really, that stands out to me because what makes those companies great isn't just that person. It's in fact that person's recognition that what makes the company great is all of the people that are there, all the things that are done in that company to make it successful. Being humble is recognizing when you need to draw on the help of other people. It is recognizing your limits. It's knowing when to get that help. It's knowing when you don't know, which I talked about earlier. It's knowing how to say, yeah, I don't know this, and I'm going to go ahead and challenge myself to learn, and I'm going to be open to learning instead of feeling the need to mask that with a sense of arrogance, trying to hide my own insecurity and feeling a need to somehow, impress other people with how loud I can bark. Let me tell you, anyone can bark loud, but it's not a question about barking. It's really a question of can you follow through? Who are you? Are you secure enough in yourself to just be yourself without pretension, without the need to pretend that you're better than anyone else? And again, as someone who has self-admittedly been that person at times, and probably is even on occasion, even now, I think that it's worth recognizing and saying, okay, is that how I really want to show up? Is that who I really want to be? I know for myself that I really don't want to be that way. I feel no driving desire or need to prove myself to anyone. Now, granted, I could say it's because I've written over 30 books, and or more, and that I've done other things over the years, and that's certainly all true. But I've had my share of failures. It's not like I've always been successful, and I'm okay with that. I've learned a lot from those failures. I've become a better person because of those failures. I've become more confident because of those failures, because when you fail and you have the illusion stripped away in your life, you no longer have this pressure. Instead, you're just kind of like, okay, yeah, I failed. Now I'm going to learn from it, and I'm going to grow, and I'm going to change. And that's really the challenge. I think that it takes far more confidence to admit that you failed, and to be able to and to admit that you need to learn something and grow from that experience, than it does to put on airs and beat your chest and say, this is how cool I am, and act like you're a lord of the dark world, or whatever else. All that really does is tell other people how insecure you are, because you feel the need to proclaim yourself in such a way as to try and impress on them your specialness. But what makes somebody special isn't the need to proclaim it. What makes somebody special is just being themselves and doing whatever they're doing, and letting that in and of itself speak for you. And I know in a social media world that's pretty strange to hear, because let's be honest here, most people in a social media world are all about the glamour and about the bling and about showing how impressive they are and all this other stuff. But here in Team No Delusion, as my friend Barrow would say, we don't play that game. We don't feel a need to prove ourselves, because the proof is already there in the work that we're doing. We don't need to project ourselves. We don't need to beat our chests and show how amazing and awesome we are. We just do what we need to do, and we let that speak for us. And we focus really instead on how can we show up to support other people on their journey. At least that's my take on it. I don't know if Bara would agree on that part, but that's me. I'm not going to speak for her. But I will say though that, like, it's easy for somebody to open their mouth and talk about it. It's harder to live it. And how you live it is you live it every day. You live it through your choices. You live it through the way that you choose to present yourself. And as I said in the other video, I'm not invested one way or another in what other people really think about me. At one time I was. I used to really care about being recognized for the stuff that I did. And I'll admit, on occasion I still like, getting credit where credit's due, at least for the work that I've done, because I think that's deserved. But I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't much matter, because someday I'm going to be dead. And maybe if I'm really lucky, people will still be reading my books 100 years after I'm dead, and still finding some inspiration and value in them. Maybe someone will watch this video many, many years from now, after I'm buried in the ground and rotting and decaying and all that other stuff, and they'll actually think that this actually had a viable, valuable meaning. And maybe not. It doesn't really much matter, because at the end of the day, it's really what you choose to take from any situation. Are you so full of yourself that you can't see your own flaws? Are you so full of yourself that you can't see where you could grow? Okay, well then, let me just share with you that pride goeth. At some point, you'll have a fall. At some point, you'll come face to face with your own mortality, or your own flaws, and you'll hopefully learn from it. You may not. I mean, not everyone does. That's okay too. Your journey is your own. That's the truth of it. And again, speaking as someone who has been there, done that, there are times I've done where I've been arrogant and everything else, and I had a fall, and I didn't really learn from it until much later on. I've gotten better about that, because I've recognized that fundamentally, like, if stuff comes up, it's better to learn from it now, and carry it forward, because it makes my life a lot easier. And I would say really that, I mean, my life in the last few years, as weird as it may sound for me to be saying this right now, it has actually gotten a lot easier. There is, not that there wasn't some drama like last summer and stuff like that, because there was, but I mean, overall, my life has been a lot less drama filled because there's really no need to put on airs. There's no need to put on a front. There's no need to do anything other than just be yourself. And the right people will sort themselves out into your life, and the other people will either, look at you in disgust and say whatever and walk away, or maybe they'll try and contend with you because they'll feel a need to prove themselves or whatever else. But if you're confident in yourself, you won't need to do anything in regards to those people. Instead, it'll just be effortless. You'll just flow into it and flow out and move on and focus on what really matters. In my case, tonight, that's writing. I have stuff to write after I eat. But I wanted to make this video because of what Isaac had said, and because I wanted to speak to the fact that being humble isn't about being meek. It's not about lessening yourself. And I think people have this misunderstanding about it because of Christianity. Being humble is simply being aware of who you are and trusting in yourself enough to be that person and letting that speak for you, and knowing at the same time when to get help, when to learn from something, and when to challenge what you know, because what you know is not the end all be all. And if you think it is, well, I've got news for you, sunshine. Go out there into the world, and at some point, sooner than later, I'm willing to bet you'll discover how much you really don't know. And that'll humble you right there. So those are my thoughts on being humble. And that's part two. And I've made a lot of videos this week. I hope you guys have enjoyed. Take care and talk to you later.